Hello and welcome to another episode of Coach and Coffee. Go get your coffee, come back, let's have a chat. Most important thing, not really, but it's just to start off the day with this mug here. We got it for free and I'm so glad because look, they misspelled it. It's supposed to say I love coffee, but it says like cocoa or something. Like, what is that? Terrible mug. If we had spent a dime on this, I would have thrown it out in anger. But we got it for free, so I'll keep it and drink from it. Actually, I do like cocoa a lot. Hot chocolate, I prefer to call it, but whatever. Today we are talking about foam rolling and stretching. There are other things that could go into this, like massage therapy. And obviously that is the pinnacle that we all wish we could afford, but most of us probably cannot. I wish I could. I've had one professional massage ever in my life and it was amazing, but it's expensive. So, foam rolling and stretching, both extremely important for reducing your risk of injury, also for maintaining proper movement mobility and proper ranges of motion. Without those things, it is more than likely, very likely, that you will probably get injured at some point during your training career, no matter what you do. It's just a reality of life. Things break down. Sometimes you overdo it and you didn't think you were overdoing it, but you did. Sometimes fluke crazy things happen, whatever. But reducing the risk of injury is extremely important while still getting the best training benefits that you can from your training. If you can do those two things very well, reduce the chance of injury and train really well, you will be well on your way. The reason why injuries are so bad is not just because you're injured and it's painful, it's the time it takes to recover and how well you can recover, and then because of those two things, how much time is lost in training. So for some people, well, there's like some big bee bouncing off the gutter up there. Doesn't even know how to fly. Sorry. In your if you miss time from injury, you're missing all of that time of training, and training consistency is the most important piece of training. You could have a bad program, but if you did it consistently, you would see progress. A really good program will have you see more progress even with the same level of consistency. So that's an important piece there, but consistency is so important. Being self-disciplined and just making sure you continue to do the work day after day after day after day, week after week, etc., etc. So with foam rolling and stretching, to put foam rolling as simply as I possibly can, and this will probably be a vast oversimplification, but just for the purposes of this video without diving super in depth, what you're doing is releasing tight spots, knots, things like that in the muscle. You're breaking up tight spots in the fascia, which is surrounding the muscles. Oversimplification, but this is the general idea, and this is what you basically need to know. And you're increasing blood flow to the areas that you are foam rolling. And more blood flow means more removal of junk and more delivery of nutrients. And those are the things you want. With stretching, I've heard a lot of runners talk about not stretching too much because something about like losing elasticity of muscle, and that's not really a thing. There's not been a study that's ever showed that that is a reality, but some runners still do that. Almost all runners who don't stretch find out later that they should have been stretching when they become injured or something like that goes wrong. They're super stiff, they have really short ranges of motion, and almost always those will lead to injuries if you continue the same exercise. So stretching is really important for maintaining proper flexibility in a muscle, proper range of motion. Most people, if you ask them to stand tall with their knees locked and then ask them to fold forward and touch their fingertips to the ground, can't do it because they don't have the range of motion in their hamstrings. And while most people can't do that, even fewer will be able to actually put like their full fingers or their palm on the ground. I know I didn't used to be able to, and when I realized I didn't used to be able to, this was years ago in college, I was like, oh shoot, I should fix that. And it didn't take long at all before I was able to do that. And I can still get my fingers all the way down most of the time, and then if I stretch for a minute or so, I'll get my whole hand on the floor. This hand, because this palm doesn't go flat, whatever. It's not the point. But a lot of runners will run into mobility issues in their hips because their glutes are tight. Sorry about that, I think I ran out of space on the memory card from all the military fitness videos. We're good now. So yeah, you may have decreased mobility in your hips from your glutes and your hip flexors being too tight. So stretching those things is just so important. Excuse me. You'll also find that as you continue to stretch and as you make it a part of your routine, you just feel better overall. You're like less stiff, and getting up is easier, and moving feels easier, and you don't have like weird creaking movements happening because you're so stiff and you never stretched. So it's super important to do those things. Most people, sorry, there's a fly buzzing around my coffee. Most people will stretch for too short a period of time. I have been working part-time at one of the universities near here, training clients there, and with almost every single one of them, they had mobility issues that they already wanted to fix, which was great. They knew what the problem was, they knew what they wanted to do to fix it, or they knew they needed to fix it. So it was just a matter of me showing them how. But for the majority of them, they'd be holding stretches for like 15 to 30 seconds. And that's a pretty short period of time. Muscles don't actually relax properly for like 15 to 20 seconds. So if you're just holding it for 15 seconds, you're not really doing much of a stretch. You're more stressing the muscle for a short period of time before it actually relaxes and stretches. Again, that's a gross oversimplification of it, but that's essentially how it works. So when you're stretching, you should be stretching for at least 45 seconds at a time, ideally more like a minute. I know a lot of people, especially initially when they start stretching, will not have the patience to do it for more than a minute. So I tell people, try 45 seconds to a minute. And if you can get that and things are going good and you're seeing the increases in mobility and range of motion and everything, perfect. If we need a little bit more, we'll tack on more time. But a minute is a good minimum. If you want to do more, go for it. At a certain point, you're probably not doing any more unless you're trying to get into martial arts and have extreme ranges of motion. With foam rolling, probably the most important thing to keep in mind, it's going to be painful, and you just have to accept that going in. Just like a workout where it's a challenging workout, it's going to be hard and you just have to deal with it. It's a different kind of painful perhaps, but again, you just have to deal with it. Mental toughness, we talked about this before. So for instance, when I foam roll my quads, it is usually pretty darn painful, and I do not enjoy it at all. As long as I stay consistent with it, it's not too bad, but if I neglect it for a little while and then go back to roll them, it's really hard and really painful, and so I want to do it for less time, and then I don't want to do it as much the next day, but you just have to stay dedicated, otherwise you're not going to have the proper mobility and range of motion in that muscle. Also injury prevention, like I mentioned before, very important. So when you're foam rolling, take your time. A lot of people will hop on a foam roller, let's say you're foam rolling your calves, and they'll just roll up and down from the top of their Achilles right below, right to the top of the calf before they get behind the knee. That's the proper range they should be rolling through. But they'll just roll back and forth like 20, 30 times and be done, and really not have done a whole lot. They'll probably have increased some blood flow in that area, but they haven't really worked on tight knots and tissue and stuff in there that needs to be worked on. So what you should do is slowly roll up from the bottom to the top, and as you're rolling along, when you find a point that feels painful, tense, whatever, it'll probably be painful. You want to stop and hold your weight on that point. Focus on your breathing. It's kind of like yoga where you want to relax your body, so you just focus on your breathing and try and let the muscle relax. after 30-ish seconds, it really depends. Oftentimes I find for me it takes much longer than 30 seconds, but maybe starting out that's what you need. After 30 seconds of having the weight on that point, you can roll up and then do the exact same thing with the next tight, tender, painful spot that pops up. But the goal is for that tight, tender, painful spot to not be that way the next time, and that it may take multiple times, it may take a lot of times, it may happen the first time. You'll find out. But it will get better, and sometimes you'll just feel the muscle like relax all of a sudden, like it deflated, and that's a great feeling too. You're not tensed up anymore. So try and let the muscle relax, roll through it bit by bit by bit all the way up, and then do the same thing with your quads, your hamstrings. You can do that with your adductors, your glutes, tons of muscle groups. Upper body, there's different ones. Normally people won't even try those, so I give them upper body stretches instead of upper body foam rolling, but in the off chance that you do want to try those, they're out there for your lats, your forearms, your upper back. You could do your lower back. Generally speaking, I'm not a proponent of that because of the pressure it puts on your low back, and a lot of people are positioned the wrong way. Anyway, point here being foam roll and stretch, foam roll and stretch, foam roll and stretch. Can't say it enough, foam roll and stretch. If you have access to a hot tub, use it. It'll relax your muscles a bit. If you have access to a cold tub, use it. It'll help reduce inflammation in your muscles or in your body in general. If you have access to a massage therapist, use them. They're amazing. That's it. That's all I got for you today. If you are not following us on Instagram, you should do so. We have posts going up there all the time. Usually it's just a fun, awesome OCR photo, but sometimes we have contests going on there for giveaways. We do that often. We list all of our different programs on there, so if you're looking for a program, you can find one of them on there, or you can visit triofitnessocr.com, so any of that will work. And I will see you next time on Coach and Coffee.